Ladies and gentlemen, this picture, truly one of the most unusual ever filmed, contains scenes which under no circumstances should be viewed by anyone.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Andy, from the Scott and Andy Horror Show, and welcome to another chapter of our YouTube Ghost Stories or Tales of the Horror. Today I will be bringing you a story titled The Black Dog, which takes place in a hospice and a nurse who works late night shifts and takes care of many elderly close to their deathbeds and about to reach their demise. So, without holding you up any longer, let's get to this. The Black Dog. I am a hospice nurse and had this experience about 10 years ago when I was a fairly newly qualified nurse and had been at the hospice about 6 months. I was on nights and hand over hand from the late shift. I set off to check in on all the patients, 12 people with 4 in small private rooms. The private room patients were closest to death, bedbound and sleeping for long periods. They had no contact with each other. In the first private room, the old lady asked me, "Was that your dog in here earlier, nurse?" I said no, and asked about the dog. She told me that it was big and black and like a German shepherd. I told her that it might have been one of the pets as therapy dogs. I knew one of those was a big black greyhound, but it shouldn't have been roaming off lead and off course. Isn't GSD looking? I checked the visitor log, and no therapy dogs had been in that day. I put it down to her pain medication and illness until I went to the second private room and that gentleman said, "There was a big black dog right by my bed earlier." I could see he was distressed, so I said that it must have belonged to one of the visitors, and it had gone now, but a shiver went down my spine. The third private room was another lady, very weak, but still quite lucid and coherent again. I heard about the black dog. I asked if it looked like a GSD. She said it looked like a wolf. I told her that the other 2 patients had seen it as well, and that seemed to reassure her. I told her that I would be looking into why a visitor's dog had been wandering around, but I knew that there had been no flesh and blood patients within 24 hours. The first 2 were expected and slipped away peacefully. The third lady wasn't expected to go quite so soon. She had a catastrophic bleed that night. In British folklore, a black dog is often associated with death and was once seen as a sort of spiritual guide that led people to the afterlife. It could, of course, have been simply coincidence. Morphine makes people trip. Often they see animals. It's very likely that these people had prior knowledge of black dogs as part of English mythology. But still, all these 3 seeing the same apparition on the same evening is pretty creepy and fascinating. It's something I still think about a lot till this day. The black dog. Hope you don't see him.